I've been talking for about 10 years now, 11 years. And so when we first started, like we started in these small little places, and he happened to be there. But like all his family, they all used all the time. So like by the time I met him when he was 14, he was already like strung out.
Hard though, hard
Mm-hmm.
dude.
Shooting up
That's crazy.
at 14. Well, it happens, man. And that stuff happens fast. You know what I mean? So you don't. Sometimes you go out and you don't really intend to. You know what I mean? I didn't intend on, like, for me personally, I didn't intend on being addicted to like methadone and fentanyl patches and all that stuff. It just happened. And you kind of wake up one day and you're like, I need this, by any means necessary. But yeah, but he had been sober for, yeah, about probably a good 4 years in. And then when he died, he was 19, about to turn 20. And it was, I think that like the thing about it is for some of y'all to think like nobody cares. Um, it's a real interesting dynamic because like we live in like where we're at right now. Like I can't see past, like you can't see past the weekend or the next game or whatever is going on, what college you want to go to. You know what I mean? Like you're in these little areas, right? But there's like a life outside of that. And sometimes like you have to see that like there's a plan for you. Some people you're gonna have families and stuff like that. Some of the mistakes I made, I didn't know that I had daughters that I was gonna meet and stuff like that. Past that, you're just making a decision in the moment and not understanding like the impact of this can mess with everything. You know. So what hit you out of everything we said?
Like my mom's side of the family, they're most of them were like kind of bad on drugs and stuff, and still doing it, or like my uncle recovered, but like it's like addiction on my mom's side is very heavy and stuff.
Hmm.
So
So like maneuvering through that life's tough, huh? And finding like the positive people and running towards them. Because really that's what all this comes down to, right? Is like if you show me your friends, I can show you your future type of thing. And like connecting with people that are doing good stuff. Do you write or something, or do you just keep
yeah,
notepad?
I write poetry and I draw.
Well, see, you have a purpose. I have a friend she has a few kids now, but she just started getting published. It was for her poetry. It was a long road. That right there, you have an escape. You have a dream. You have an outlet. That's good when you find that. Is yours basketball? Is that what they told me? That's your outlet. Pretty healthy, huh? You all right? You just all right? All right. I heard you were better than that. So with you two, what did you pull out of everything you heard? What stood out?
Just that like you know all these people that like and like how serious it is to the people that
Yeah.
One of the big things in that is in our little community, and again, Marion, Gas City, it's not, Marion's a little bigger than Gas City. I mean, it's bigger, but we're not from a big town. We're not from Richmond, Indy, Fort Wayne, Evansville. One of the biggest things that I like to take away from the people that I get the pleasure to work with is so many times when we're working with youth, we get the question, is my mom and my dad, or say we're being raised by grandma, grandpa, or aunt and uncle, their mom and dad are currently using drugs and they're strung out on drugs, and how can they not care about me, or how can they let this happen, or how do they not love me, or what's going on, how can I get them help? And one of the biggest things for me, and something that I had to realize on my own, is he tells a really good story of his girls were little when he 10 years ago, when he finally Remy was 6, I think Blaze was 2 or 3. He tells it like he didn't love them any less when he was in the absolute midst of chaos and at the worst of his addiction, when he couldn't do nothing but get high and survive. He didn't love those kids any less than he did when he got sober. But the biggest thing is we don't, in addiction, and I was in addiction for over 12 years, there's nothing else that it clouds our thinking and our judgment, or anybody, if it's you or a loved one, their judgment is so clouded with the focus of how we're going to get high or how we're going to do this, that in that moment, that's the only thing that we can think about. It's the only thing that we care about. But if you know someone or your family members, they don't love not just you guys any less, but in a broad picture, They don't love their children, or even if they're a relation, they don't love you any less. They just don't know how to love you the best way they can. So that's something that we work with a lot of youth, and we work with a lot of people in addiction. We see it a lot with boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and both people are in addiction, and one person tries to get sober, and then the other person's still making mistakes. Well, I just don't get it. Why can't she? Sometimes it's not for us to understand, and sometimes it's not going to happen when we want it to happen. But to keep that focus, to keep that belief that it will happen one day is what keeps us going. And again, we don't know your stories, and we don't know why you're here per se sitting in front of us, but we know that it is an opportunity to speak life and to maybe hear some of your guys' stories. And that's truly what we do this for.
What did you pull from it? Like, what's the one thing that stood out? Yeah. Anything. It doesn't matter if it's the TikTok. What you got? You want me to go to the next person? What'd you get?
I think I can speak for everybody here that we know somebody that's smoked marijuana here,
Uh-huh.
or something like that, and the amount of fentanyl it takes to be lethal,
Yeah.
the tiniest amount.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that.
It's a couple grains of sand. So I can get enough fentanyl to kill you. If you sharpen a pencil, I can fit it on the tip of the pencil where it's sharpened. So basically nothing. Nothing is enough to end you. And it's a very poisonous thing. That's why you'll see police when they're dealing with it and stuff have to, it seeps through everything. And it's unfortunate, but it's just one of those things that's where we're at, is you have to be very cautious out there. And it's very deadly, and it doesn't take much. What did you pull from it? Mhm. Yeah. Well, right now, the most increasing percentage of overdose deaths is from the age group of 14 to 18. So that's on the biggest rise. And then for me, being a parent, looking at, I have, two teenagers, it's man. So 14-year-olds, their overdoses are increasing more than any other age group, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And there's no.
Yesterday at Marion High School, which is in your all's conference, 16-year-old overdose yesterday. Luckily, he didn't die. They Narcaned him. He was good to go, but it truly happens every day. And it's a community that you guys even know. You play those teams of sports, and even not someone you know, it happens every single day. We were in Kentucky last month, and they just had an overdose death right before we had got to the school in that same school year. And we say this a lot too, and we really, when we're talking to adults more, but I don't want to say the luxury, but we had the luxury when we were in our addiction to be able, my overdoses, and I had multiple, I had to go above and beyond. If I'm being completely transparent and honest, there were so many times where I didn't care whether I lived or died. So I would push the envelope. This got me pretty high earlier, but let's see how much more I can use. And I would have to go above and beyond to finally overdose on whatever my drug of choice was. Unfortunately, the world we live in today, you guys do not have that same option. The drugs that I was taking and he was taking, him in the 40s or 50s, whenever it was, when he was using, he's just really old. But we had the ability to be able to not have to worry about death instantly. The world we're in today, it's truly a mistake. It's truly thinking it's a Xanax. The kid had to get Narcan 7 times off taking a half of a Xanax because it was stamped with fentanyl. And like I said in my part of the story, I was 18 years old and completely strung out. By the time I was 20, I was on a bus heading to prison. I had my entire life ahead of me. I had a shoebox full of scholarships. Little schools, nothing impressive.
Very little schools.
Tiny
Very
schools.
little schools, like Ivy Tech.
Nothing impressive, but at the end of the day, I had the entire world ahead of me. Was I going to be a professional athlete?
No.
I was nowhere near that good. But what I had the opportunity to do was help my family or help pay for college. Those scholarships were going to give me enough money to help me start a future. But I was already in such a midst of bad decisions and using drugs on a daily basis that I threw everything away on a few choices and a few bad decisions. And then once you're in the system, did anybody here got family members in the system? Yeah? How long have they been in the system? I don't need a number of years, but it's been a long time for the most part. When we're in, it's so hard to get out because our mindset is probation and prison and parole, and all these things are set up against us, and we got to jump all through all these hoops, and we got to do all these things, and they just want us to go back. What I learned the hard way, and it ended up being one of the greatest decisions and the greatest things that I learned, was it's setting structure. I grew up in chaos. I grew up in the streets. I grew up it was chaos. I didn't know what structure was. I didn't know what it was like to have a curfew of 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever. I came home when I came home. My mom worked first shift and third shift. She didn't know when I got home. When did you get home? Oh, I was home about 9:30. I'd roll in at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and I had to get up and get high just to get over to go to school the next day. Probation, if you understand that structure, and that structure is meant to help you succeed, it's but so many of us, we get lost in that system and we keep making bad decisions, keep going back to jail, and jail leads to prison, and prison leads to other things. Where you guys are at right now, the entire world is at your feet. It's cliche, and everyone says you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want to do. It's true. I chose to go right when I should have chose to go left.
What did you pull from it? What's something that you thought that stuck out? Hard to hear me? I wasn't loud enough?
That's not that fair.
But
Up there?
what I heard was like the fentanyl that kind of hit me close because like in this in the beginning of January Richmond conference, and we talked about fentanyl and how a lot of it is not because kids know they're using it, because of the lack of knowledge there is about fentanyl. And sometimes even though there's that knowledge out there, they don't put it on a platform where teenagers use. So many are oblivious to that they're either taking it or knowing it's harmful.
Yeah. What conference did you go to?
It's called CAPCA. It's a yearly conference. It's like it's the first day was like targeted towards like the use of drugs, fentanyl. The next day was for youth and like collections.
That's awesome. I'm glad you went to that. Yeah, I mean that is what it is. It's just it's a bad situation, and there's not much you can do about it. The awareness part is huge. So, and then some of you with the family member thing, the story that Cody was talking about earlier is I had done a panel breakdown, and I had this young girl, and she was premature. You could tell she was really small, and we were going through all these questions, and it was really simple. And the question, and this is for some of y'all that have family members that are struggling, you might want to hear this story. But she was like, why? This like broke everybody's heart. But she's out of no place. She said, I have a question, and we said, what? She said, why does my mom keep choosing cocaine over me? She was like, she chose it while she was pregnant with me, and she still chooses it over me. And she was like, I had problems when I was born because of her choosing cocaine over me, and she still chooses it over me. And the truth is, like, I have been, anybody that knows me, like, if you check my socials, I love my daughters. I will kill you over my daughters. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love my freaking daughters. But I was in addiction too, and even when I was in addiction and wasn't as available, I loved them just as much. You know that you have this problem, and you think next week I'll get it figured out. And it's also like I don't even know if it would be safe for me to be around my kids right now because I owe people money. Like there's all of these things going on, and sometimes you just have bad parents. That's part of it too. But like a lot of times with this, like with the addiction part of it, there's something keeping you away, and you know it, and you keep telling yourself like I'm going to get better for them next week, but you have like to get better means to get sick. You know what I mean? To get dope sick and change everything that you've ever known or understood, and it's a difficult and scary process. And I'm not making excuses for adults because we should be loving our children well. But when she had asked that, it like broke everybody's heart. But the truth is like my love for my daughters didn't change in or out of addiction. Now I'm healthy. You know what I mean? And they have custody of them and all of these good things, but that's not everybody's story. Not everybody gets out. And it's not like a lack of love. And it's not that they don't think about you. They probably think about you more than you would ever know. The thoughts of you probably torment them. But it's not an issue of like, why don't they love me? Or why do they choose drugs over me? That is what's happening, but they're trapped too. And in that, protect yourself if you're in that situation. Understand if they're using, you know, I mean, you may have to create distance, but it doesn't change the love part. My daughters now, opposed to my daughters 12 years ago, the love that I have for them hasn't changed. Our relationship's changed. We're closer and we're cooler and we talk about things, but I loved them just as much then. So sometimes, and you can't let this go into the next phase of your life. If you're struggling and wondering why somebody's not there for you because they're struggling with addiction, it's a them thing. And it's a hard thing in life to own that and just be like, you know what, like I have to move on with my life and I have to understand that I have value and I have to find my identity in this world, and it won't be attached to the person that can't see my value or can't see me right now, right? It's hard. I do it as an adult. This is the stuff I'm telling you. I'm not saying like, hey, wake up, you know what I mean, and do you and give you some, baby Yoda meme about how to handle life and it'll be great. But you do have to understand like that you have got to find your identity and understand that you have value, and understand that even if this person doesn't see it, and even if they are a bad parent or even if they are a bad boyfriend or girlfriend, like I still have worth and I still have dreams. I have things to write. I have things to do. I have things to accomplish. And I'm not going to be identified by other people's mistakes or shortcomings or lack of ability to love. And I'm going to make decisions based on me and my future and the family that I'm going to make one day, and the business that I'm going to start one day, and the college that I'm going to go to one day, and the stories that I'm going to write one day, and the music that I'm going to create one day. Right? So even if they never see it, and even if they never get out of it, you still have value. And they are not like the author or the owner or the God of your value or your identity or your worth or any of that. Every one of you has a purpose, and I say this over and over again because I mean it. There's a path that was meant for you to take, that you will do something great. It may not be speaking at schools. It may not be playing for the Warriors. You know what I mean? But like, you have a path, you have a calling. There's something you're supposed to do. Right? So even if they never see it, I know it's painful. There's been pieces of my life where I get that. I know it's painful. Even if they never show you the love that you asked for, like, you have to keep going, and you have to keep making good decisions, and you have to tell yourself in the mirror, like, what you speak is so powerful, to look at yourself and be like, I have value. Today, I'm going to kill it. Today, I don't feel like killing it, but I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to write. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to respect the people that respect me. I'm going to do the things. And start to understand, like, and look at yourself as the royalty that you are, as the human being that you are, as this person that has a purpose and a calling on their life. And it doesn't matter if my mom doesn't see it, and it doesn't matter if my dad doesn't see it, and it doesn't matter if my family's going to see it, because you know who's going to see it? One day the world's going to see it. Right? One day my people are going to see it. And I may have a circle that doesn't have any blood in it, but they're going to see it. And the people that need me will see it, right? And I will stop whatever mess is going on right now and move forward and live a different kind of life, because this isn't carrying it. This isn't following me. My parents' decisions aren't following me. My grandparents' decisions aren't following me. So that's all I've got.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So, you guys have no idea who I am. I maybe talked with a few of you. If you don't want to put me on camera, if you don't want. But I got a call from my brother in the fall. You think?
I think so, yeah.
I got a call from my brother, who's the sheriff of the county where I grew up. And he said, I just had lunch with these two guys that you need to talk to. And I was like, all right, who are they? And he's like, well, they're two, recovering addicts. And I thought the first thing I thought he was going to say to me. And I was like, oh, and he's like, you need your students to hear this message. was like, all right. And we talked, and he says it's the message that they deliver is amazing. And so, it's my first year here in Richmond, but I was a high school principal for 3 years prior to coming to Richmond in another district. And the thing I want to tell you is this. This is from Friday. You guys know where Mount Vernon is? Okay, this is from Friday. 11 students hospitalized at the middle school for taking edibles. This is worse. This is from May the 1st. Second, Avon High School dies from drug overdose. Okay? And so, one of my concerns, I know what's going to happen is this. Like when I was a kid, when I was in high school, he and I probably played sports against each other, being in the same conference. Correct?
Mhm.
Probably did. When I was a kid, like people drank beer, and some people smoked dope, maybe drank vodka, but I never saw anything other than that. Is that true? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we never talked about that before, but that's what I saw. There were no vapes. Like when you smoked a cigarette, you knew it was in the cigarette. When you drank the beer, you knew it was in the beer. When you drank the vodka, you knew it was in the vodka. But now we have vapes and everything else that's laced. And the THC pens, the dab pens, that's really what I want to talk about. Those things aren't like, I don't know if they're made in a garage in California or a lab in Mexico. They're not vetted by the United States. They're not. Have I looked it up? How it's made, where it's made, how it's made in that spot. But somebody's going to put fentanyl in those things. And so when that happens, somebody's lacing the kids' drugs at Avon High School with fentanyl right now because they're freaking dying. They're not just ODing, they're dying.
You said Avon?
Avon, just on the west side of Indy, like nice Avon. Yeah. 2 kids in the last like 2 months. So it's in the weed. It's in pills. You think you're buying, I just went to a drug conference. You think you're buying a Xanax. And it's not, it's zero Xanax. It's 100% fentanyl pill. And not only, oh man, hey, take this pill and you hold it in your hand. What happens if I hold it?
Yeah, it's just the same.
It goes right through my skin.
Yeah.
It goes right through your skin. You can't inhale it. And so it's just a matter of time. How many of you guys have seen a kid OD on a dab pen? I dealt with it 3 times a year for 3 straight years as a high school principal. Ambulance comes to the school, their blood pressure's a train wreck, their skin is gray, they talk like they drink 24 beers, and they're completely out of their mind. They spend a day or 2 in the hospital. Oh, it's terrible. The first time it happened, this kid was stumbling down our high school, puking all over the hallway. I was like, what is wrong with this kid?
It's my main lunch for you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think it was 2 years ago, my sophomore year. Wayne County Sheriff's Department busted a whole drug house of enough fentanyl to kill the entire population of Richmond.
You guys had a kid OD on a dab pen here this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened like 2 years ago.
Yep. So that's what I want to tell you. Not just for you, but for your friends. Somebody's going to know somebody who takes something that they think is one thing and it's not. And they're either going to OD and be lucky and live, or they're going to OD and die. And being a person who's been educated for 20 years, I don't want anybody in that situation. I don't want you to have to be in a situation where you go to prison. And I certainly don't want you to be in a situation where you die.
Xanax. 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, whatever it looks like. Maybe Xanax. But it only takes one time for it not to be. It's playing roulette every time. You're a basketball player. You stood right here, and you had one shot. You'd make it, continue on with your sophomore year, you continue on with school, continue on to college, whatever. And you miss this jump shot, you're dead. One option, one or the other. You hit the shot or you die. The analogy is no different. When you're going out and you're getting drugs or you're drinking, you're doing whatever in the community, we can't stress this enough. You don't have there's not going to be a second chance for like that. Somebody that doesn't have any tolerance to fentanyl, you're dead. The hopes are you're with somebody that may have enough Narcan to save you. If they don't, you're dead. We asked a question in the middle, how many of you have somebody that have a close enough friend that if they died today, you would be absolutely crushed? Any of you raise your hands? Think about that for a second. You've been a little upset. You've been agitated. I get that. I respect that. I sat in your shoes 19 years ago. I don't know what you're going through at home. I don't know what you deal with outside of here. And I have nothing but respect for whatever it is you're dealing with. But with that hard exterior, it's a soft inside, just like I was myself. And I lash out and I get angry and I let people get under my skin because I'm hurting inside. If that's you, it is. If it's not, it is what it is. But even someone today that has been a little bit hostile like yourself, if you left us today, there's going to be people that are going to be absolutely devastated. The girl sitting beside you, any of your friends, if they lost their life today, you are going to be absolutely devastated. Don't let anger cloud your view of everything else. I don't know what's going on. I don't have to. You have value, and you have purpose, and you are loved. Maybe not by the people that at one point you thought were going to love you unconditionally, but the beauty of life is somebody always steps in to fill those shoes. You are loved. You are a daughter. You're special, and your calling is going to be out of this world, because I went through the same trials and tribulations in a sense that you have. Don't let your path lead you through 12 years of prison, 12 years of addiction, just seeing some of the most countless, unimaginable things that I've had to witness. Don't let that be your story. You have the power to take your story by the hands and control it. Make good choices, make good decisions, and keep positive people around you.
Time.